In Vietnam, we spent about $450 a month for an apartment within walking distance from the beach. But here are 10 more reasons to spend time living in this beautiful country. Reason number one is costs. It's probably no secret to you that Vietnam is one of the cheapest countries in the world. So a one-bedroom apartment will typically cost you between $200 to $500, depending on the location and quality. And services such as weekly cleaning and even Wi-Fi, which is often quite fast, will usually be included. And by the way, in Vietnam, apartments are nearly always furnished. A small meal, such as a banh mi sandwich, will often cost less than $1, and a bowl of pho will usually be around $2 to $3, whereas a full-blown meal will cost about $5 to $6. I have an expat friend from Barcelona, Donnie, who has a Mediterranean food restaurant in Da Nang, and a huge bowl of salad with buffalo steak will cost about $6. Of course, there'll be more expensive options out there, but for the most part, the cost of buying your own food and cooking it at home will be about the same as going out. Speaking of groceries, our monthly grocery budget was only about this much for 2 people. And whenever we needed to make a grocery run, we just took a taxi to Mego, which is a Costco-like supermarket, it's quite big, and brought back groceries, having to do that 2 to 3 times a month. One grocery run would cost us about $150 to $200. Taxi services will generally run you about $1 per 2 kilometers if you use one of the ride-hailing apps such as Grab, probably the most popular one in Southeast Asia, but there are also other ones which are also quite cheap. Our phone bill was only about $10 a month, and services such as dental cleaning also cost me $10. So our total monthly budget was this much, and this is for 2 people. I have a separate video on our budget in Vietnam and plenty more information on living all over Southeast Asia, so don't forget to subscribe to the Elitka channel and give this video a like, of course. The number 2 reason to move to Vietnam is safety. On average, Vietnam is a very safe country, although safety levels do vary city to city. Some are safer than others. Like Ho Chi Minh City, Saigon is probably one of the less safe options in Vietnam, though it's much safer than, say, Manila if you take Southeast Asia on average. Whereas Hanoi or Nha Trang would be pretty safe. Of course, you have to be smart, like don't wave your iPhone around, especially if you're standing close to traffic, and don't have your bags be easy to snatch. Most people ride bikes in Vietnam, and that's exactly how a lot of crime happens. But I wouldn't say it happens super often, and if you go to a city like Da Nang, Da Nang is one of the safest cities I've ever been to in my life. And the worst thing that happened to us in 2.5 years living there was a guy passing us on our motorbike and slapping my wife's butt. Unpleasant, of course, but I wouldn't say it's life-threatening. And the worst crimes that I've heard happen to people generally have to do with theft. Of course, this is all subjective, but if you look at statistics on Numbeo, they generally correlate with how I felt in cities like Saigon, Hanoi, or Da Nang. Generally, however, you will never feel threatened in Vietnam. I would say quite the opposite. And the reason for that is number 3 on my list: people. People in Vietnam are very warm and welcoming. If people are not smiling at you for some reason, try smiling at them first, and your smile will always be returned. That's pretty much a guarantee. But it's not just all smiles. One time I had a problem with my bicycle where the chain got lodged in the bike frame and I couldn't get it out with my bare hands, and I forgot my tools at home. I was at it for maybe like 5 minutes until a couple of older Vietnamese cyclists stopped by, pushed me aside, busted out some tools, and got it out for me. They asked for absolutely nothing in return, just pretty much smiled at me and went on their way, leaving me in the dust and gratitude. I've seen people help each other like this with their motorbikes, and generally there's this feeling of community and safety present in the air that you just kind of feel. That's just what the Vietnamese people are like. If there is a party and you just kind of randomly show up and join it as a stranger, you will pretty much always be welcomed. I've never heard of anybody getting kicked out of a party that they wanted to join. And I think the first 3 reasons are major contributors to the 4th one, which is a large expat community. There are a lot of expats living all over Vietnam in cities like Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh, Nha Trang, and especially Da Nang, or the island of Phuoc Cuoc for that matter. As a result, you'll likely find people or food from your own culture if you get homesick. And generally, there will be plenty of places where expats hang out. Restaurants, coffee shops, co-working spaces, gyms, pubs, bowling alleys, etc. And by the way, in Da Nang, English is widely spoken and you'll barely ever need to use the translator if you don't speak Vietnamese. And if you want to go see a movie, movies in Vietnamese movie theaters are never dubbed, and are shown instead in the original language with Vietnamese subtitles. So you always have this as an option as well. On the other hand, if you don't want to be a part of any community and just want to live around local folks, you can always make home in seaside towns like Kinh Yon or Dong Hoi, or even the little known but quite gorgeous Con Islands. But I think you'll run into expats just about anywhere in Vietnam. There really are a lot of foreigners living there. And another reason for foreigners to move to Vietnam is comfort, as unexpected as it may sound. It's actually very easy to get whatever you want and have it delivered to your home. You'll see Grab bikes everywhere in Vietnam who do exactly that. You can always get around by your own motorbike or bicycle if you like the extra workout like myself, but if you don't want to navigate through the traffic yourself, there will always be taxis available through ride-hailing apps such as Grab, as I mentioned. For shopping, there are large modern Costco-like supermarkets and convenience shops all over the place, but if you want something more genuine, there are plenty of local farmers markets available as well. Which brings me to the next reason: food and fruit. Like I mentioned earlier, there are plenty of places to go out to eat, both local and foreign. Vietnamese food is usually quite diverse, and generally it's healthier than other Asian foods because there will generally be lots of leafy greens provided with every meal. But if you like cooking your own food, there will be plenty of fresh ingredients available both at local farmers markets and supermarkets, and the same goes for fresh tropical fruit, which is usually quite cheap. So like for example, a kilogram of mangosteen, my favorite tropical fruit ever, will only cost you about $2. Mangoes will usually cost around this much, pineapple this much, and banana costs are generally negligible. Here you have an opportunity to buy real village chicken, not the antibiotic-laden stuff you'll find on supermarket shelves in the US for 5 times the price. And fresh live prawns will sometimes be cheaper in Vietnam than the chicken. Typical price for prawns in Vietnam is about $5 per kilo at the farmer's market, and this is for live ones that will actually jump out of your bag. Reason number 7 to move to Vietnam is how open it is to visitors. And it's easy to stay long-term for citizens of many countries. If you're curious about how you can do that, check out my videos on exactly that: how to stay in Vietnam long-term, and what it's like to visa run from Vietnam. Generally, it's one of the friendliest countries, both people-wise and policy-wise, that I've ever been to. Other than the practical stuff, keep in mind that Vietnam is a beautiful country, home to some of the most gorgeous beaches in the world, both well-known like the My An beach in Da Nang, to virtually unvisited ones away from major urban centers or on islands like Con Dao or Cham. If you like to explore the country by bike, you will probably run into some postcard-perfect beaches that are completely deserted. If beaches are not your thing, keep in mind that Vietnam is home to 8 UNESCO heritage sites like the Ha Long Bay and the Chang An Landscape Complex in Ninh Binh. Aside from the natural heritage sites, there will also be cultural ones like the Citadel in Hue and the entire city of Hoi An, and much more. But if you want to avoid the crowds and not go to touristy places, there are still so many more things to see in Vietnam, from mountains and remote islands to beautiful temples and pagodas all over the country. And even if you don't want to go anywhere far and instead simply take a short bike or bicycle ride from the city of Da Nang, there are some very interesting things to see there as well, like the Marble Mountains, a very hikeable and explorable karst mountain complex with lots of temples, caves, and viewpoints. Or the Bana Hills, former French estates which are now an amusement park, home to some ridiculously long cable car rides, an old church, and the famous Hand Bridge. And last but not least, there is the Son Ta Mountain in Da Nang, where you can visit the Quan Am statue, the Vietnamese counterpart to Quan Inh, most foreigners call her Lady Buddha, explore the nearby pagoda, or with luck you can find there some rare fauna like the endangered red shank duke monkey. They generally stay away from people, but once in a while they do come out. And this is just if you stay in Da Nang. Other cities will have many of their own attractions which will be just as interesting to visit. Keep in mind that there are also plenty of climate zones in Vietnam, from the eternally cool city of Dalat or the beautiful mountainous town of Sapa in northern Vietnam to the dunes of Mui Ne. And if you're feeling particularly adventurous, take time to explore the Ha Giang Loop or the Ha Giang Loop, depending on the pronunciation, in the north of the country. Culture. Now, if you want to approach Vietnam from a cultural perspective, you're in for a treat. Not only is the Vietnamese culture very interesting and intricate, with a long and often turbulent history, there are also over 50 other ethnic groups living in the country. Many of them are quite different from the actual Vietnamese, with different languages and customs. A good place to start learning is the completely free Precious Heritage Museum in Hoi An, founded by a French photographer named Rihan. Of course, these are not the only reasons to move to Vietnam, and if you remember any other reasons to move to this country, please leave them in the comments. And also, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the Elite Kid channel for a lot more on living abroad. See you in the next one, and stay nomad.